Chef Greg here with you. We're doing the mother of all briskets. We have a beautiful 12.5 pound Wagyu brisket. This particular piece of meat came from California. It graded out as a 10, which if you know anything about Wagyu beef, it is crazy marbled, super fatty, absolutely delicious. So we're going to get this trimmed up. We're going to season this more Texas style, so just some kosher salt, black pepper, and then typically they use a little cayenne or paprika, but we're going to throw in some Bang & Ben's brisket rub. Again, it's got some great flavor to it. We're going to do mostly salt and pepper on this, and we'll show how I trim this up. Again, this is a 12.5 pound packer, so it's got the point and the flat on there. There's not too much surface fat here. There's more in the bottom, and I'll show you how I get that trimmed up. I find that the RecTech cooks really moist, so I don't need a lot of this fat on there to provide moisture to my brisket. One, because it's a really good brisket to begin with. Again, Wagyu beef, it's the best money can buy. So we've got a lot of internal fat that will keep that meat super moist and tender. So this outside area, I'm going to trim off most of that so I can get a good bit of my seasoning on the outside, get some good bark, and make sure all of that is edible. So let's go ahead and we'll start trimming this up. Alright, I've gone ahead and put our brisket on a cutting board. As you can see, the grain of the meat in this point is running this way, and the grain in the flat is running over here. And on the back side, there's more fat here. And we'll get this trimmed up. Again, I'm going to take the majority of the fat off of here, just because I want to make enough exposure for the meat to actually have rub to sit on, so I get a good bark. I use a Japanese style boning knife. I think I get a little more control versus a traditional or a flexible boning knife. These are kind of short, rigid. Again, nice and sharp. Make sure your brisket's good and cold, especially when you're trimming out a Wagyu brisket or a prime brisket. The fat kind of gets a little soft when it's warm, so make sure it's as ice cold as possible. You can even put them in the freezer for about 20-30 minutes before you cut them up. It gives it a little easier for you to cut that fat out. And again, a lot of this fat we're going to save for sausage. The spongy stuff we don't want, but this fat on the outside here makes really nice addition to our if you're doing like a beef sausage or kind of a combination. This fat goes great if you're making merguez, some sort of lamb sausages. But you can see the marbling in this is just absolutely ridiculous. You know, traditionally these cows are massaged and they get sake. I wouldn't mind being a Wagyu cow myself. Turn this sideways just a little bit to get in here. And again, this fat here won't really melt out because there's a good bit of it. So I'm going to turn it this way, make it a little easier to get in there. I'm going to slice right along that point here and get underneath to try to remove some of that pocket fat. And that way, it'll as it cooks, that point will sit a little flatter on the brisket, and it won't. It'll cook a little more even. But again, this stuff doesn't melt, so we'll go ahead and trim that out. And you can see in here, I'm basically cutting. Let me turn this up, right in between the point and the flat there. It's all fat, not getting any meat. And again, I can get a little seasoning in there too. A little more flavor. I'm sure some people are rolling over their graves right now, but I think this is the way I choose to do it. I think I get a little better result. Now you can see when that flat will sit back on there, I'll get a little more evenness. Kind of hard to see from this camera angle. Trim just a little more out of here. And again, this will also make it really easy to slice later. I can almost remove the point from the flat entirely and get really great even slices. A little more in here. And again, in just a few minutes, you can have a really nice trimmed out piece of meat. Okay. I think that's about all I'll take off the top here. This little nose piece of fat, get rid of that. All right, we'll get this flipped over. Again, this is a little easier to do. And this side we'll trim. It almost just pushes right off. This knife is so sharp, it almost makes the fat melt right away. Is that funny?
That's a funny bean. Looks like you're just peeling your hair off.
Mm-hmm. So we'll get underneath a little bit more over here.
Like you're peeling off the face tag. It looks like so fatty for you. Look how big that pile just got in.
And again, you're not going to develop any bark on your fat. So really, the more meat you expose, the better bark you'll have, especially if you're having problems developing bark. Take a few extra minutes at the beginning of your cook. Trim out some of that fat. And that way you can get a little more penetration with smoke as well.
No.
Get a little more over here. I think that's gonna do it. And this is the back side of the point. So again, the flat's running here and the point is on the underside of this fat cap here.
That's a funny joke too, Dad.
And again, the flatter we can get this to sit, the more even it'll cook.
More
Right, we'll leave that alone. And I think that looks pretty good to me. So about, I don't know, a couple minutes. Let's go ahead and get this seasoned up. Alright, so our brisket's fully trimmed. I put it back on a sheet pan. I think it just makes it easier to season on a cutting board. And you can see the point now is kind of settled about an inch lower. We took out a good bit of that fat underneath. So again, I'm kind of a little more even. And we're going to season it with some salt. We're going to throw some salt on there. And black pepper. We want to be pretty liberal with our seasoning. We will put some of a brisket rub on there as well, but I want to go a little more salt and pepper than anything. And this meat's been sitting out at room temp for probably 20 minutes or so. And that fat is, as silly as it sounds, already starting to break down a little bit. Can you see the salt? So I don't need to put any oil on the top or anything to make it stick. It'll all stick nicely. Let's get a little over here. And again, this is a big piece of meat. It's going to cook for, I would say, probably 16 hours or so. We'll get it on later on tonight, let it go overnight. We'll eat it for lunch tomorrow. Okay. So we'll let this sit in the fridge for a couple hours for it to cook on. Okay. And again, you can even pull that point back a little bit. We didn't cut far back in there, but you can get a little seasoning in there. Outstanding. We'll go ahead and get this flipped over. Oh, look at that marbling. That is just absurd. You know, Wagyu beef is expensive, but it's one of those that save it for special occasions. And you can really see a difference. Let me see that salt a second. You can really see a difference, not only in the final product, but in when you're butchering it out and trimming out that beef. Okay, we're just going to kind of make sure we get rub on the corners too. Especially the fatty break. Okay, that's enough salt. Thank you. That's enough. Alright, you can see here we have what will be the mother of all briskets. And we'll get this on 225, and like I said, we'll let it go for, I'm thinking probably about 14 to 16 hours. It's the better part of, probably after it's trimmed, about 11.5 pounds. We'll let this go overnight, but I'll snap a picture before we get it on. And I don't definitely, I cook. I won't wrap this. I'll probably let this go the entire way unwrapped. And I know there's a lot of people that'll wrap it at 165 or 170. I look more for color. If it's getting too dark, I'll wrap it at that point. And then, as far as doneness, yeah, you can go to 201, 203. But for me, I'm looking for a consistency, a little shake on the grill. I'll take my bullpen and I'll kind of poke it in a couple places after it's kind of getting to that 190 mark. And once it's soft all the way through, I'll probably take it off. Sometimes you have a tendency, if you're going to about 203, 201, it tends to get overcooked, and then when you go to slice it, it'll almost fall apart, which is fine for pulled beef. But if we're trying to get really nice slices, there's not really a perfect temperature to go to. Every brisket's a little different, so that's why some take a little longer, some cook a little quicker, and some will slice perfectly at 201, or some will shred. It really depends on the piece of meat. So we'll get this wrapped up, put it back in the fridge, and we'll see you at the Rec Tech.
For 5 years.
Alright, give you a little peek here. We've been going 9 hours. We're hitting internal about 172. I know I said I wasn't going to wrap this up, but I've got a really good color to it. I don't want to get any darker, and it's looking really good. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I do have a little bit of jus that I'll put in the bottom of that foil wrap. So that jus is 2 cups of au jus mix with 2 tablespoons of soy sauce and 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. So we'll go ahead and get this wrapped up, put it back on the smoke, and we'll keep it going. It's high 190s, 201, 203. We'll check with our probe for tenderness. But let's open her up. I'll give you a look at what she looks like. When I wrap it up, make a little dome here with the foil. Take that jus, and this is warm, so it's about 170 degrees, about the same temperature as the meat. Pour this in the side. Probably added about half of that. It's about a cup total. Nice and tight. Take the second piece. Back on the smoke. Take our probe. Close her up, and then we'll let that go until we get tender hit an internal of high 190s, 199, 201. We'll take a look and see, but probably another 3 hours. So it'll be a total of about 12 hours, 13-hour cook. All right, Rec Tech family, it's all done. Our brisket's rested. We had wrapped it. I wasn't planning on it, but I got a nice dark colored bark, so it was looking really good. Wrapped it, went for another about 4.5 hours, give or take. Let it rest for 2.5 hours in the cooler. We're gonna go ahead and let it slice. This is the jus that was in with the brisket wrapped up. I dumped it out. I'm gonna slice it and then lay my brisket back in there so it stays good and juicy. So we'll go ahead and slice her up. And again, we'll cut this probably about 1/4 inch thick. Slices in here. This again, this is the flat part. Pull this out. Still really hot. So here's our brisket. We've got to get a good 1/4 inch of smoke ring. Again, it super limp, and it just pulls right apart. Great flavor. Good saltiness, and again, we put a good bit of black pepper on there, so it's got good heat to it. That's tasty. Now for the point, again, what I'm saying is we can cut this right off. And then again, we'll slice this. It's kind of hard to see with the bark, but the grain of the meat's running this way. So we'll slice this. Again, nice cross grain. And the marbling in this is just absolutely stupid. Super fatty. But it just, look at that. I'll say it's almost spongy texture. Nice and elastic. Perfect. Well, I'm going to finish slicing this up. We got some friends coming over. We're going to hit the pool, eat some brisket. Give it a shot. Pick up a Wagyu. It's worth the money. Again, this was just salt, pepper, a little bit of Ben's brisket rub. No injection. Let it go. We wrapped it after 9 hours. Another 3.5, 4 hours. Let it rest for 2, and it's delicious. So I got some brisket to slice up, and we'll see you guys soon.